Hey, thanks for joining me. This week, I would like to talk about complaining. And it's something that we do quite well as humans. I'm not sure if we just want to hear our own voice or if the story is what keeps us intrigued. Thank you for joining us. Myself and my whole committee. Thank you for joining us, ladies. I signed on quick today. You're fast on that button. So we're talking about complaining. And part of this came up because I had a little moment of ranting on my personal Facebook page because I kept seeing people lamenting about the fact that it was August 1st. And that the summer was almost over, or conversely, it was hot summer, and that school was almost here. And yes, I know the stores put stuff out 3 months before it actually gets here, but it served as such a contrast for me that day because I had had a conversation with someone earlier in a session who was, quite frankly, only a couple weeks in all likelihood away from passing. And we were talking about how to make the most of that time, not necessarily in events and going and doing and checking things off a supposed bucket list, but rather tapping into what might still need to be said. What did she always want to learn and just never tried? Just where was the heart space? Like what was important at that time? And it gave me such a contrast that I so rarely take the position of cranky pants, but I didn't want to stop myself. I did think about it. It wasn't a quick knee-jerk reaction. I did think about what the post was going to be and what it could possibly bring. So basically, my premise was, let's stop complaining, and this isn't a comparison because someone is reaching the end of their physical contract. It was more the dichotomy between the energy I felt coming off of those posts of a woe is me, when that's not really something to complain about. The fact that time changes happens every stinking second. It's just the way we are in this world of counting. So it was more like feeling the a bit of a sadness for those that felt like they needed to point out the fact that we have to lament over the fact that there aren't as many days, or there are too many days, and they weren't in their day. Like it seemed to me, now I don't know in particular for everybody, but when there's that many posts in a row and your whole page is scrolling like that, my page, my opinion. And it got some great results, thoughtful people and those with humor. Then a couple of them did realize that I had seen some of their posts, and that's exactly what I was posting on. So I thought I would talk about that today because I don't know that we all get to have conversations in the context in which I do. In one moment, we can be talking about relationships on the physical level, and then I could be talking about business, and then I'm talking about the ceasing of the physical being and transitioning into that soul level. And I thought, well, maybe I can give a little bit of context here, that I'm not saying that that whole expression, life is short. I really don't believe it to be. I believe when we come in and when we go out, with the exception of suicide, is our contract. So therefore, the timing isn't judged on the other side. So I figure make the most of it while you're here. And this was part of the message that I was hoping to convey, was that if you're present in your day and you're squeezing the most out of life you possibly can in that joyful place, you're not as aware of what the weather is or what someone else is talking about or the latest drama that's happening surrounding people, that on a on a superficial level. So one of the things that I wanted to ask was, how is your complaining working for you? And it promise you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't serving some kind of purpose for you. So is it giving you a sense of accomplishment? Like, well, I complained about that, so I must have done something about that. No, actually, you just ran your lips, didn't really do anything. But it does set off a chain reaction of feeling like you addressed something, even if you didn't move your buns. So the complaining in an energetic standpoint is when you go past, it's about a 5-minute mark, right? Because we all need to vent. We all need to release, to express, to share, and maybe get some feedback, hopefully, from those people in our lives who care enough about us to say, and how's that working for you? So if you have that person in your life where you can go for a walk, you can vent, you can call them in text, although that doesn't convey very well. Set a timer, set some kind of conversation point where you can both agree that at the 5-minute mark, we are done. We're either looking for a solution or we're going to leave this statement, this subject behind us, move on to something else, because a lot of the times that will also help it to clear up. So once you get past that 5-minute mark, it turns into complaining. And what that actually does is it turns into manifestation, because energy does not understand that you are simply kibitzing about something. It just doesn't understand. It's going to take what you're talking about and run with it. And that's why a lot of the times people come in and they'll say, well, I just can't get out of this pattern. And I will ask them, well, how many people do you talk to this about this? How many times do you reiterate the story and tell about, well, it's always been this way, so it's always going to be that way? How often are you complaining about a job rather than looking for a new space to be? Because while there can be some relief in the sharing of what's going on, if you are simply complaining to hear your mouth run, you are not serving yourself, and neither is anybody who's listening to that complaining. So you hear often about being present and that we should all be present. We're too distracted. And I agree with that. I'm guilty of that. But I also think that it takes practice to learn how to be completely present, especially now where we have information flying at us from all different directions. So if you're wishing away your time by saying, oh, it's August 1st, September's almost here, you just lost the whole month of August. You are not present. You are always in that future space. And then therefore, to me, you are not contributing to your own life. You are going to get to the end of your contract, and I promise you, some part of you is going to be wishing it had all those moments back where it spent so much energy on talking about things that couldn't change anyway. We can't stop the clock from moving unless you're broke. And then it's timeless, then you don't have a clock. So if you find yourself even wishing away the workday, you are wishing away your own vitality, your own life force energy. You're basically saying, where I am in this moment doesn't matter, so what the hell? Let's just toss it out. So you give more energy to your recycling, I hope, and more consciousness to that than where your own effectiveness is and your energy is going if you're in that regurgitation of a situation. So same thing, if you're lamenting on something that's happened and you're reiterating over and over again how someone talked to you, how they acted. Sometimes we get different listeners. All you're doing is saying that this moment I have right now is not important either. So are any of the moments in your life important? Do you ever put down the phone and not pay attention? I get the irony in the fact that most of you are watching on the phone right now. I do get that. But this is for whenever you listen to this and to put it into action, because these things have to be practiced. We don't come by it naturally anymore. We did as kids, but as adults, we have to be a bit more consistent in it and committed really to it. So one of my favorite quotes, and I've used it before, is from Eleanor Roosevelt, where she said, great minds talk about ideas, average minds talk about events, and small minds talk about people. And I love that it's short and sweet, and it allows you to decide what type of mind are you in at that moment. I don't think it's a collective of who you are as a whole person, like you have a small mind if you talk about people. If you only talk about people and celebrities and what they're doing and all of that stuff, might want to look into an expander, might want to try to take up a little bit more space, maybe read a book, maybe go out and talk to people rather than about people. So it's hard to really be connected and conscious in your own world if you're only looking at other people's examples and what they're doing and how they're living, especially if you feel the right to comment on it. Again, venting is one thing. We all need to release some steam occasionally. I realized just this morning that I was putting way too much energy into a situation where, quite frankly, I'm not raising another grown-ass adult. So me following them around and trying to help them be the best that they could be when they have no interest in it, gotta back out of there. Because I also heard myself talking about it too much, that it wasn't benefiting anyone. And we all have rights, we all have choice of how we want to live. When it impacts me, I definitely feel like I have to say something, but if I'm keeping it going, then I'm not contributing either. So a few of the ways that we can be present, yes, meditation, fantastic. Usually the first thing that comes up when someone thinks about being present, and that is, I've said it before, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Like, I can be going for a walk. It can be sitting and taking deep breaths. It can be staring at a candle flame, doing that quieting of your mind as you go to sleep, and visualizing a peaceful space. Can you tell the storms are rolling in? It just got really dark in here. And the ability to be present is greatly enhanced by practicing and having some form of meditation practice. So in that process, though, I feel like if we're willing to hear our own voices, and yes, we have many in there, you can hear what you're saying to someone else, kind of like in a follow yourself around way, where you're watching how you are in a relationship, which we've also talked about before. Well, I've talked about, you've kindly listened. So be willing to hear what you're saying. So many times we get into the habit of whining and complaining and not having gratitude that we don't even realize we're doing it. We just talk offhandedly, almost to fill the space, because there's another aspect of being present is being good with silence, being good with pauses in conversation. Some of the nicest times I've had with people And Howard used to be really good at this. Well, sometimes he just didn't want to talk, but he was really good at, we could go for a ride and not say anything for an hour. And there wasn't any tension. It was just that we were sharing each other's company without having to fill it with a bunch of words. And that to me is so indicative of a great relationship. If you can be in the car with a friend and there's space and you're both soaking in each other's company without feeling like you have to. And trust me, I'm a very good talker, genetically gifted even in that way. But I've learned that the silence teaches us so much, and we're afraid to hear what might float through in a thought form or what might drop in. Yet so many people want to learn how to communicate with their guides and their angels and those who have crossed and all that kind of stuff, but they never want to shut up the nonsense that's going on in there. So I think we have to be willing to hear what's going on, be willing to look at it, address it, be inquisitive of it. And then in that, there in practice should be a moment where you step back and you're like, okay. And then for me, it can be really peaceful, and I truly will not have a thought for a certain period of time. And then I'll be like, hey, I didn't think anything. I think that's my brain coming back online. But then I celebrate the fact that there were moments of peacefulness in there. And I think sometimes people get worried about that it's a loss of cognitive function. I think it actually helps the cognitive function to have that moment where maybe the only thing going on is your, autonomic system, the thing that's on autopilot anyway. So be willing to hear what's coming in, pause and take it in, and then be with it, whatever it is. Don't try to change it, judge it. Do not complain about it, because if it's coming in, you're ready to hear it. If you have a thought, or you have a judgment, or you have an irritation with yourself, I think it's coming up because you're ready to hear it. You're ready to address it. And that should be an empowering place where, we could celebrate that. The other way to arrive in this moment of pure enjoyment of life is to focus on one thing. When you are doing the dishes, just do the dishes. Think about the suds, think about the water, think about how good it feels when they're all done and drying. I never dry my dishes. They should air dry. Are we all in agreement with that? They should be able to rest and be in the present as well. That might take it a little too far, but I'm not drying the dishes. I had to do that for too many years in my life. Not doing it. Adult, I have a choice. So focus on that one thing. If you're going for a walk, do it mindfully. Hear your footsteps. Hear the trees going around. Really hyper focus on one thing, because then you will train your brain to stop doing this, and being all over the place and not able to catch the brilliance that may fly through. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is the more you do this and the more you are grateful for the moment that you're in, time seems to stretch. It seems to be more vibrant. And I don't mean the days get longer. I mean the joy within the moments seem to expand in and of themselves. And that's what I'm talking about. You squeeze more out of life. And it could be the laughter of a child. It could be that your ride home takes you 5 minutes more than it normally does, and a song you absolutely love comes on the playlist. So catching that moment of embracing it will expand out into all these other areas of your life. So if you're complaining, you are not leaving room for any of that brilliance to pop through. It might be a great idea for a product. It might be a message to call someone. It could be the idea that now's a good time to exercise, to take a nap, whatever the case may be. If we don't leave any space and we just fill it with stuff, that's not living to your fullest potential. It really isn't. And I would want to know, why are you gypping the rest of us from your fullest potential? Huh? Huh. All right. So another way to get your mind to focus is to have a code word that you can say to yourself, or be playful. Be like, I'll say, well, that was good, Vic, but let's shift. And another component, you could wear a bracelet. Each time you feel yourself complaining, you put it to the other wrist, and then you become aware by the end of the day just how much energy that you've expended there. And then you be kind to yourself and simply make the commitment that you address it, that you recognize it, and you're willing to shift it. Okay? Because I think people who complain a lot are hurting, and they're looking for attention. But I think they're looking for attention from themselves first, and they just haven't figured that out. So that's my thing for today. Off to my next couple sessions. I hope you have a fantastic weekend of capturing the moments and acknowledging the joy that exists. And then that really helps you roll through the other moments when they're a little bit more challenging. So thank you, everyone, for showing up, for watching this, listening to this, broadcasting it through your car. Heard that one today. That's fun. I love that I get to go for a ride with you. And I am so grateful that you spend this time, hopefully, focusing on what I'm running my mouth about, because that means you already did the exercise for today. How fantastic is that? You guys rock. I will see you shortly. Goodbye, all.